cell stage with blastomeres, and that morula then starts to develop this pocket, right? And that pocket is known as the blastocele. And ultimately this ball of cells continues to divide. So these big guys are continuing to mitotically divide and become smaller and smaller and smaller. It's basically the same size, this blastocyst. But now we don't call it a morula anymore because we have that hollow space that's called blastocyst with blastocele inside. And that blastocyst finds its way all the way. So while it's a morula, it's up in here, dividing, continues down into the lumen of the uterus. It's going to find a nice cozy spot to implant itself, ideally somewhere up in here, not down here. Because if it implants itself down here, then the placenta gets developed down here, and we have problems. Because the placenta, you know what that's called?
Placenta previa?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dangerous.
Talk about it a lot in pregnancy.
Yeah. Because once that placenta covers your internal os, you can't have vaginal birth. You can't get through the cervix. So it's a cesarean. It's not necessarily, the end, but it is a wrinkle in the whole process. So it gets to the wall of the uterus. Here's the blastocyst. Right, wall of cells with a hollow space in the middle, and it starts to work its way into the endometrium. And what do we have in the endometrium? Uterine glands and a good blood supply. So it burns itself into this wall of the endometrium. Here it is that has gone from this solid ball of cells to a hollow ball of cells, and now this blastocyst is differentiating into something called a trophoblast with an inner cell mass. This trophoblast further develops something called the cytotrophoblast and the syncytiotrophoblast. The cytotrophoblast and syncytiotrophoblast are going to continue to differentiate. The syncytiotrophoblast, like I said, is a single-celled structure, but multiple mitochondria, and it's making lots of enzymes so it can invade this endometrium and access the blood supply and access the uterine glands, where, among many other things, glycogen is stored. And glycogen, of course, is valuable because now we have an energy source for these cells. This inner cell mass is starting to differentiate into what's called an ectoderm and an endoderm, or a hypoblast and epiblast and hypoblast. But we're gonna stick to ectoderm and endoderm. Ectoderm and endoderm. Ultimately, and I've been trying to move this because it should be down here, but ultimately, you can see that we have a uterine wall. This is our myometrium. We have a placenta attached at a region known as the decidua basalis, this part of the uterus. We have the umbilical cord, which of course is carrying freshly oxygenated blood from the placenta to the fetus, and from the fetus, waste products via the umbilical cord to the placenta, and all the exchange happens via these little structures called the chorionic villi. So this is our decidua basalis. This line right here is called the decidua capsularis. You see it's part of the endometrium here. And then this region is known as the decidua decidua parietalis. This actually comes quite a bit later, but I can't seem to get it to move until I get permission. So we have, from this slide, these developing germ cell layers right here, part of our inner cell mass. Remember, the inner cell mass is literally going to be you in the future. And the division of this inner cell mass, you see it has three layers. One is the ectoderm, this is the mesoderm, and this is the endoderm. And this will ultimately, this little yolk sac could become part of our umbilical cord. The ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm are going to differentiate into virtually every tissue and every system in your whole body. Ectoderm, we want you to know the entire nervous system develops from the ectoderm. Mesoderm, we want you to know that the muscular system, skeletal system, pretty much all from mesoderm. The digestive respiratory system linings, endoderm. There are more things, but these are the basics that we want you to wrap your head around. What happens once we establish these 3 germ cell layers is something referred to as gastrulation. And actually the gastrulation establishes the mesoderm as the cells in the ectoderm start to migrate. And this gastrulation process is going to ultimately produce all 3 germ cell layers, and those 3 germ cell layers, as I was saying, are going to produce all of the tissues and all the systems in the body. And we have good animations for this gastrulation, yeah.
Gastrulation is the process of moving
Folding.
that creates the mesoderm,
Yep,
ectoderm, and
yep,
endoderm?
yep,
Okay,
yep.
that's just.
Well, actually, we start out, we have ectoderm and endoderm, which is actually called the epiblast and the hypoblast. But don't hang on to that.
Okay.
Just understand that we have the ectoderm and the endoderm, and as the ectoderm cells start to migrate, they fill in a space between the 2 layers and form the mesoderm.
And that whole process is referred to as
Gastrulation.
gastrulation.
Yeah. This is what happens once we've established those 3 germ cell layers. Then the embryo has to start folding, and it folds both head to tail and laterally. And that folding creates a 3-dimensional embryo structure. These are out of whack. Out of order, yeah. So here's our embryonic disc, there's our ectoderm, there's our endoderm, and notice that we start to form an amnion here. The amnion is that fluid-filled sac. The fluid is called amniotic fluid. When you hear that a woman's water broke, this is the amniotic fluid that has burst out of the amniotic sac. It's the first stage for parturition. We have a yolk sac. In birds, the yolk sac, the yolk that you eat on your egg, is for fuel. It's fat. But in humans, it's making blood cells. It's making more primordial germ cells. This is our yolk sac. The chorion, it's pointing to the chorion. This piece right here ultimately will create all those little chorionic villi, the little tree-shaped structures, which are little capillary beds that are bathed in maternal blood. Once we have some folding, that is this part right here, then we lead to this structure right here. This is a really early embryo development. We have a head and a tail region. This would be our head region, this would be our tail region. And this neural groove and primitive streak are first established via gastrulation. Here's another view of that folding that's happening. Head, got our neural groove created down there in the middle. We have somites now that are starting to show up. Remember telling you that the somites are going to be forming the vertebrae, some muscular structures, right?
How many weeks is this?
This, I don't remember exactly, but early.
Still
Still in the embryo stage, for sure.
Hey Heather, if you
Yeah.
go back to where the chorion and the amnion and stuff are, the chorion is the pink cuboidal looking cells?
Yes.
Okay.
No, this reddish,
Okay, it looks
streak.
like it's saying the red part is the allantoid.
allantois.
Allantois is specifically.
The allantois is just this little bridge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the allantois is ultimately gonna become the umbilical cord.
Okay,
Mhm. But the chorion is this
the red part.
reddish structure.
Okay.
Because the chorion becomes this. So you got chorionic villi. So
That
these
makes
are the
sense.
little blood-filled tree-shaped structures that are bringing blood to and from the fetus, because by the time placenta gets established, it's no longer called an embryo, it's called a fetus. So the maternal blood, right, is going to pool around these structures called the chorionic villi. And you see in each of these chorionic villi, you have a little arteriole, or what's carrying essentially oxygenated blood, and a little blue carrying, actually it's arterial blood, isn't it? Because this is blood coming from the fetus. So remember that our fetus has umbilical veins leading to the fetus, carrying freshly oxygenated blood, and umbilical arteries coming from the fetus, delivering waste to the chorionic villi. So fresh oxygen pools here, down its concentration gradient into our capillaries. CO2 in high concentration here, down its concentration into the maternal blood. Nutrients, waste. This is maternal, this is fetal. Now the placenta is pretty much a maternal structure, but there are some contributing structures, right? Fetal portion of the placenta, chorionic villi. All the placenta is created by the mother, but this fetal portion, meaning that these structures are taking care of the blood supply from the fetus, whereas this region of the placenta is carrying maternal blood. Maternal blood. This, of course, is going back to, this is going into. That's like a down and dirty quick summary of the development process per Dr. Hill.